Hi, and welcome back to day 2 of ABG Investor Day. My name is Max Bacco, and I am an equity research analyst here at ABG, and will be your host during the first presentation. Today we have some 32 companies presenting, which will be live streamed throughout the day on 2 dual tracks. And the presentation will be available afterwards on demand as well. Our first company to present here on track 2 is Alcadon. And as always, we have CEO Sonny Mirborn with us, who will give us a presentation, and then we will follow up with a Q&A. And with that said, Sonny, please go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Max. Glad to be here today. I've been with the company Alcadon Group for the last 3 years now. We had a very interesting journey. Before I arrived, we also had a very interesting journey. We're a company with a very strong market position in the premium segment of our niche market. Let us describe a little bit more about what we do and how our plans look going forward. Next slide, please. Just to explain a little bit what we are doing. We are a distributor and product developer of all the products you need for connectivity to work. Our products are fiber optic cables, duct systems. It's all the components you need for connectivity to work in any type of building. It doesn't matter if it's a residential home, an office, an hospital, or even a data center. What we do is that we provide the products that are needed for the transfer of data. Could be the transfer of data between cities, between communities, between buildings, but also the transfer of data within any type of building. If you look at our largest business area here, fiber networks, or FTTX, fiber to the X, this is basically where we provide products for 3G, 4G, and a 5G rollout, or fiber to the home, or broadband rollout. So it's basically fiber optic cable systems, a complete system, a turnkey solution for entrepreneurs, operators, anyone working within the area of fiber, basically. Now, we have had historically a very strong market position in the Swedish and Norwegian markets when it comes to the 3G, 4G, and FTTH rollouts. So we are a rather large player in these markets when it comes to FTTX. Now, where we come from when we were founded in 1988 was basically commercial networks. This is connectivity in commercial properties, like offices, like hospitals, like data centers. Basically, when you have a commercial property, you need copper cables, you need fiber cables, you need outlets, sockets, you need routers, switchers, fiber cabinets. You need a lot of products for a complete connectivity solution. We offer all of those products. Basically, you could say that a large part of this business area is our own developed products, like the European cabling system that we developed in the mid-90s, and where we are the market leader today in Sweden and Norway when it comes to the premium segment of the market. Very important business area for us. It's growing quite well, and especially or particularly the data center segment, where we provide racks and cabling solutions for mostly enterprise data centers. Very, very nice business area, and we have seen the data center segment grow quite a lot the last 3 years, in particular, I would say. The residential networks, that's basically where we offer smart connected home solutions, where we marry together data products and connectivity products with electrical installation products to offer a complete concept. We have a few large construction companies as customers, but also a very large set of smaller installers working with us. Services and training, that's basically where we offer the instruments, the certification and training courses needed for installers to be able to install our products and gain the full advantage of getting assistance and structural help from the Alcadon team when they deploy fiber and copper solutions. Next slide, please. A brief picture of who we are. If we start to the left here, you can see that about 30% of our turnover is products that we developed ourselves. About 10% of our staff works today with product management and product development. We develop products and complete systems adapted to our local markets, but we do not do the manufacturing part ourselves. That's outsourced to several factories around the world. And we do some kitting and assembly ourselves within this system development. 70% is professional distribution. This is where we represent globally leading manufacturers within our field, within our local geographical markets. Having these two solutions here with both our own products and distribution, it's great because it offers us flexibility, locally adapted solutions. It strengthens our brand, but it also provides us with the potential of never missing out of a technology trend. When you work with globally leading partners, you make sure that that does not happen. And it gives us a very strong sense of flexibility within the organization. Looking at the share of turnover from each country, Sweden is still a very large share of the turnover, growing quite rapidly during Q1 and also started with organic growth during Q4. Norway have experienced a couple of really strong years, about 20% of the turnover. Denmark, strong organic growth. We acquired a company called 66 International in Denmark beginning of 2021. And we have since then experienced a very strong organic growth on the Danish market. Also Germany, very small share of the turnover today, but we took a couple of really large deals during last summer. And as we can see, we have a concept that works very well on the German market. It's a tough market, but getting these quite large deals showed us proof of concept on the market, which has worked very, very well for us. Through an acquisition, we entered the Belgian market a few months ago, or about 6 months ago. A small company, and we see that we have the potential of helping them grow, and they also add some interesting supplier relations for us to use in our other markets. So a nice acquisition carried out at a fairly low multiple of, I think it was 3.9 times EBITDA on the last rolling 12 months EBITDA. We have done quite a lot of acquisitions historically. We do not say that we are a serial acquirer. We do quite few acquisitions compared to serial acquirers, but we do rather large acquisitions compared to them in our size. But what's important for us when we do an acquisition is that the acquisitions really add something, that they add something to the group and that we can really help them grow, that we reduce the risk in the group and we create cross-selling synergies, for example, extremely important for us. So we are quite picky when we choose our acquisitions, and we have quite an active acquisition agenda. Otherwise, over 200 suppliers today in the group. We have a very large set of customers. No single customer is constituting more than about 6-7% of the turnover, and that shifts every year which customer is the largest one. But a lot of our customers are small to mid-sized installer firms. So it's a rather fragmented customer base that we have. And about 100 employees, happy, motivated employees. We have an employee net promotion score of 46, which I know some people think is extremely high. We're aiming to be about 50. A lot of our staff are shareholders in the company. About 16 or 15, between 15 and 16% of the shares are owned by employees of Alcadon. So we truly believe in the company ourselves. And I think that's the best motivator, being a shareholder, actually. Next slide, please. Short about the market in general. What drives our development is the increased volumes of data in society. And I mean, it's not a secret that the volumes of data are growing very rapidly, especially with the introduction of IoT or Internet of Things and 5G. We have seen increases of between 20 and 60% the last few years, a year. And we are going to see a continued high increase of the amounts of data going forward. Now, this requires fiber. It requires fiber to the home. It requires 5G to be able to utilize the benefits of increasing amounts of data. It's a must, basically. And when you have increased amounts of data, you also need storage capacity for that data. And the storage capacity is basically a cloud solution or a data center. It's the same thing. Now, the data center segment is an area which is very important for Alcadon, where we focus a lot, especially the last 3 years. We have a very nice competitive concept, and it's a market that grows with about 10 to 25% a year. We are focused mostly on co-location and enterprise, which is the small data center, the edge computing, not the large data centers provided by Facebook and Google. That's not our main market. Otherwise, you could say that what some people miss when you talk about data and connectivity is that 80% of the bandwidth is indoor connectivity. And this is one of the strongest area and focus segments for Alcadon. We provide complete solutions here, and it's a nice market that has been growing in the Nordics and in Europe with between 5 and 7% a year in the last 20 years. So it's steadily growing, it's highly profitable, and it's expected to continue to grow with around 7 to 8% going forward. So it's a very nice market to be in. We have seen during the pandemic that it was basically at a standstill because nobody wanted to invest in connectivity in any type of premises. That has changed a little bit, and those investments need to be done. They need to be carried out. So we have seen that it has been a little bit of a catch-up effect the last few months, which is of course positive for us. Next slide, please. When people look at us, they look at Hexatronic, they look at connectivity companies, they often talk about FTTH. Now, FTTH is one part, it's an important part, but it's one part of our business area, fiber networks. But since it is a fast-growing segment, since we have a strong market position and a strong market offer here, I think it's fairly interesting to do a deep dive here. You see the red here, markets where we have highlighted where we are present today. You can see that, for example, Sweden have a very large share of households already being connected. But one have to remember that even if Sweden is a rather mature market, it's a very low coverage of the rural areas of Sweden, a lot of investments that still remains. And FTTH deployment, it's a moving target. You have population growth, you have technological growth, you have a situation where between 5 and 15 years on after a fiber rollout, you need to not only replace the fiber, but perhaps roll down new fiber or additional fiber. So it's a moving target, and that's what we see in Sweden right now, where additional investments are being done the next few years. Norway, Denmark, somewhere in between Sweden and the high growth markets of Germany, the UK, Belgium. We are present today in Germany and Belgium, and as you can see to the right here, these markets are among the 3 fastest growing markets in volume and percentage going forward. Very, very interesting. And we are positioning ourselves gradually to be more focused on the so-called FTTH growth markets. But connectivity in general is our business, not only FTTH. We look also at data centers and the indoor connectivity in general. Next slide, please. Shortly about our financial development. As you can see, since we had a very strong position in the FTTH market and still have in Sweden and Norway during 2017 and 2018, we grew with the market. We took a lot of market shares. And when that market fell down, because it actually did, one large customer of ours were extremely aggressive on the Swedish market, too aggressive. They didn't get the land permits. They didn't find enough entrepreneurs to do the digging for duct systems. The market pretty much died out for 1 or 2 years. But Alcadon managed to stay profitable. We had a strong positive cash flow. And that's basically when I entered the company, and together with our CFO and our updated management team started to focus on efficiency, improving our gross margins, focus on cash flow, improving the sales force management. We had a very nice profit growth due to that in 2020 and 2021. and we started to do acquisitions. We entered Denmark, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and that has so far been quite successful. We have been picky in choosing our acquisitions, and so far we have been able to add something to those companies, and they have definitely strengthened the group. Next slide, please. Just briefly looking at 2021, strong sales and operating profit growth. I think we showed strong EBIT numbers, return on equity. We had a nice operating cash flow, but most important of all, we did enter these new geographical markets, positioning ourselves for growth, transforming the group into a more high growth company. We did a lot of investments in creating additional revenue streams, adding OPEX, but planned increases of OPEX, I would say, where we are focusing on the long term. We want to be a really strong, fast-growing company for the next 10 to 20 years. We're not looking at the next quarter. That's not the kind of company we are. We took strong, large contracts with Deutsche Glasfaser and MTEL in Germany, and Norlys in Denmark, further strengthening the group. We did a refinancing and capital injection, so we lowered our financing costs. We strengthened our balance sheet in order to prepare ourselves for growth and also an acquisitive growth. The pandemic affected us a lot, delayed projects, bottlenecks. It was a difficult market to be in. As for most companies in any type of industry, we were not saved being in the connectivity business, even though we saw the underlying demand continue to increase. But it was a difficult situation for us also, of course. Next slide, please. Our Q1 this year, we had a strong sales growth, an organic growth of around 15%. We grew particularly strong in Denmark and Sweden during this quarter. We did lose out on the operating profit a bit, which was basically due to us growing our OPEX, investing for the future, creating new revenue streams in several markets. We also saw a gross margin decrease, but that was mainly due to the country mix and a lag effect of pricing. As everyone knows, we have severely increasing prices, and for Alcadon and anyone in our business, I would say that we can move on those price increases fairly easily, but it takes 1 to 3 months before we do that. And in this type of situation, we see increased prices on a monthly basis. So it's a difficult situation for anyone, but we usually come out in a very positive manner when something like this happens. Otherwise, we had a positive operative cash flow. We had to invest some cash in building up our inventory levels, of course, which is needless to say why. We are focusing on a lot of growth initiatives on data centers, FTTH market. We can see the installer market bouncing back. But in terms of what I always get a lot of questions from investors the last few months, I'd say that, yes, we were negatively affected by the pandemic still, especially in January and February, especially I would say on the German market. And we had a lot of supply chain bottlenecks. A lot of difficult issues, they remain, but I would say, handle it very well. So we are affected, but not in a very, very negative manner, I would say. Next slide, please. Just to summarize, I mean, we are affected by global macro trends. I think it's fair to say that we are an interesting company because we have a very strong market position. We are viewed as a competence center within connectivity as a whole. We have done a lot of value-adding acquisitions. I didn't mention a lot about our customers, but most of our customers have been with us for the last 15 to 20 years, buying products and systems from us on a monthly basis. We hardly have any customer churn, which I think is very, very positive, of course. I mentioned a little bit about our business model, flexibility, differentiated, locally adapted solutions. And for those who choose to follow us, I think you'll see that for the next few years, we are going to transform into becoming more and more of a European company, perhaps even during the next few years venturing into other parts of the world. But we are doing it in a very sensible manner where we think first and act afterwards. Thank you. That was a little bit about Alcadon.
Thank you very much, Ronny, for the presentation. Now we have some 5 minutes left for questions. And I think we can start with your Q1 report. And as you mentioned during the presentation, you reported 19% organic sales growth in Sweden. And Sweden has been a quite challenging market for you and other players on the Swedish fiber market since 2017 or something like that. Could you elaborate on what drove the growth here in Sweden in the first quarter, and if it is temporary, or do you see the same momentum going forward as well?
Sure, I can say I would be happy to say that we gained a lot of market shares, and I think that we did gain some market shares, but mainly the market woke up again. We saw the fiber market picking up growth there because there are some really large investments being needed in that field in Sweden. We saw the installer market and the investments in commercial premises waking up again, where all the investments that were needed during the pandemic are now being done. The only thing stopping us from growing more is basically the bottlenecks, the supply chain bottlenecks, I would say. But yeah, we expect the Swedish market to continue to grow, if not the bottlenecks take away some of that growth, of course.
Okay, and as you also mentioned during the presentation, last year during the summer, you signed 2 larger contracts in Germany, one with Deutsche Glasfaser and one with MTEL. And the deliveries was planned to commence in Q4 21, but has been pushed forward due to the pandemic. And in your Q1 report, you mentioned that deliveries have started in a small scale and is expected to be ramped up going ahead. Could you give us an update on how this is going and your expectations moving forward on these contracts?
Sure. Well, basically what we said still holds true. We have had some deliveries to both of these projects, and so we are moving forward. It's not picking up at the same pace that were expected when we signed the agreements. The pandemic has affected at least Deutsche Glasfaser quite significantly. So a lot of the sub-projects have been delayed quite significantly. But we see slowly and gradually the sales towards these contracts are picking up. So for us, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we do expect the contracts to be honored from both parties. And the intention when we have our discussions and negotiations with the customers are basically the same as this summer.
Okay, perfect. And now with the cost inflation and to some extent continued component shortage, but mainly cost inflation, do you see a risk for new products being delayed or pushed upon by customer due to the economics not matching up?
We haven't seen that actually, not due to the price increases. What we have seen is that some projects are delayed or postponed due to material shortages. That it's either us or competitors of ours or other suppliers to these projects who can't deliver. So basically the situation has been dreadful during the last few months, and there are going to continue to be a lot of projects being delayed, but it's not due to price increases. There is a great understanding, I would have to say, in the market for price increases being a necessity, and we don't know for how long those price increases are going to last. So there's no need to delay projects due to the price increases itself.
Yeah. We have 1 minute left, so take a quick question here. Let's see if it's quick or not. But as I said, during 2021, you entered both Germany and Benelux, 2 new markets for Alcadon. What are, according to you, the main challenges when entering a new market? Is it, for example, recruiting competent personnel, Or is it perhaps brand awareness among customer, or is it something else?
I would say brand awareness is not an issue. We acquire strong, profitable companies with a strong market position, and Alcadon is beginning to be very well known in a lot of markets throughout Europe. So that's not an issue. The main problem when we want to grow is finding the right staff. A huge problem for everyone in our industry. The last year, we have seen that it becomes easier for us as we are more well known as a player with a strong market position, interesting growth journey ahead of us. So we are attracting a lot of people, but it's still the difficult situation, hiring people for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I think our time is up, Sonny. Thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck going ahead, and hope you have a nice summer.
The same to you. Thank you very much, Max.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.